What is the importance of getting in touch with a movement practice every day? What is that for you?
Well, for me personally, and I feel like this should really resonate with anybody who, like I say, woke up today.
Mhm.
We were born as humans to move our bodies. So the importance of that is to honor that. I feel like we're not generally, as a human population, honoring that fact anymore. It's kind of a lost art of movement. I see kids that are just, walking home from school, barely walking home because their parents are picking them up at the bus stop, even though it's 5 houses away. So when I say walking, they're plodding along,
Yeah.
to get in a car after sitting on a bus, after sitting in the classroom all day. And they're not moving like humans anymore. They're moving more like, it's like they're not even walking, they're falling. It's like plump, plump, plump. So I feel like that we're doing ourselves a disservice if we're not honoring movement in some way every day, even if it's just a 5 minute walk. Movement is something that's cumulative. It doesn't, you don't have to go out and bang out an hour walk or get in 10,000 steps, or it all happens over the course of a day. It doesn't matter if you do it 5 minutes in the morning and maybe another 10 minutes during lunch, or maybe between clients, or maybe while you're on a phone call. It's all cumulative. So we're just, as a society, we're not honoring it. So for me personally, the fact that I can move, and I can move in mostly a pain-free way, as opposed to how I was moving just 10 years ago, is something I do daily to honor that.
Cool. And let's highlight, what was it that you were doing 10 years ago? What was your career,
Hmm.
and what was your specialty?
Well, I had multiple careers. I don't even know if this is that interesting to people,
Uh,
honestly. But I'm just basically a Florida girl who grew up I went to high school in the early 1980s, and I went to University of Florida. Go Gators! And I had this dream of becoming. When I was a kid, I used to watch something called Bewitched, which was on in the 70s, and there was a man who worked in an ad agency, and I just wanted to like work at this ad agency, like he did. I wanted to put on like a fancy like business skirt and stockings, and go with a briefcase and walk along Madison Avenue in New York City, and sell advertising. So I went to school and I studied advertising because that's what I saw on TV. But it wasn't anything like what you saw on TV. So my first career after college was at an ad agency in Coconut Grove. And I was the media director there. And then I went and I worked at a concert promoter for 7 years. And while I was at the concert promoter, I conceived my third child. While I already had a child that was just under the age of 2, and another one that was 10 months old. So I tried to continue working outside of the home, and then my husband said, like your job at the concert promoter is kind of just paying for childcare at this point. Why don't you maybe stay home with the kids? I was like, what? Stay home with the kids? So stayed with home with the kids for like 8 years, and always exercised all through those years, all through college, all of that time. What fitness was in the 80s, that was me. I had the hair, I had the leggings, everything.
the sweat day.
Yeah, oh, totally. I mean, I tried out to be an aerobics instructor and chickened out in Gainesville Health and Fitness. So funny. I could actually pull up a picture of my hair. You'll really laugh. So, and probably the outfit too. But so like one thing kind of led into another. And then, once the kids were out of preschool and really a little more independent, as far as like not needing constant picking up and feeding, and which they still did. But
Which they still do.
I volunteered, when they still do, although they don't even live here. But it's a mom, I need this. But you know how it is. But even that evolved into volunteering at their elementary school, and then substitute teaching in their elementary school, and then at one point, my husband stopped and said, let's open a law firm. He's an attorney. So we opened a law firm in 2008. And he said, do you think, now that the kids are all in school, and, do you think you can help me? I said, sure. I don't know anything about law. I know about advertising and raising kids and working out, but I don't really know anything about a law firm. So I helped him grow that law firm from the two of us to almost 400 people over the course of 10 years. And I
That's it.
sat at that's it. And I sat at a desk from like 2008 to whenever we decided I was done with that. I would sit at the desk all day, and being in that state of mind and that 80s and early 1990s mentality of I have to get out and exercise. I would go from sitting at a desk for 12 hours and squeezing in an hour of something every day during a stressful time in life where I was raising the kids and working full time and doing all that stuff. So I'd go running or do yoga, and I thought I was fit, but I wasn't moving well, and it led to a lot of pain and injury, which led to foot surgeries, a back surgery, and which leads me to where I am now, and that journey of like, how do you heal that, and how did this happen, and how can I help other people from going through the things that I went through, and how can I help them prevent that or avoid those things. So that's that journey, give or take a few years, a few months, that who knows, it's all such a blur at this point. I'm going to be 55 next month. Everything's a blur. It's like, what's going on, so
And I think
there's a
there's a lot
lot.
of power in that. So for everyone listening, Dana didn't think she had a story to tell. But as you probably just listened to, there's so much in there that is relatable for not only people who are listening who are 50 plus, but also individuals in, my case, 30 and under, who think their life's just going to be this one constant journey of up the hill and you'll reach the peak. And yeah, I don't think that's what we're designed for. We're not honoring that as humans either. So
listen, nothing is linear. Nothing is linear. Your recovery from pain isn't linear. Life is not linear. The only thing that's linear is death, flatline. So really, that's the one thing I really learned when I was recovering from surgeries, is that you had those days where you're like, wow, I'm doing so much better, I'm doing so much better, and then all of a sudden, whoa, oh my God, I feel like crap. So nothing's linear. Even your fitness journey or your health journey, there's just always going to be things that just pull you back and up and down and under. And
if all
that's
you
how
did was constantly gain muscle and lose fat, I mean, there'd be no fun in that.
that's 100% true. Exactly.
That would be way too
Exactly.
easy.
Yeah.
Which I think we've talked about before, is the whole emulation of the heartbeat within my logo, is the fact that that's what it's full of. It's ups and downs and lefts and rights, and it's a continuous pattern of up, down, left, and right.
Absolutely.
And I think the other powerful part of that whole story is that you have now transitioned your entire mindset on what fitness or being fit really is. So let's dive into really quickly the stories of your surgeries. If you have any like little inkling of what caused you to get foot surgery, what did that decision look like? And then what was your 6 months to a year reflection upon getting it and going through with it?
Yeah, that's like a loaded question, because if you start talking about feet with me, we're just going to have a whole separate podcast happen.
So hold on
because
real quick. What was, for everyone listening, what was the tip that you posted yesterday?
to train barefoot when you're training barefoot, because I just literally like was in the shower and then came out here. I'm like, I'm gonna do trainer tip Tuesdays. So I filmed like 10 things that I'm gonna just put out every Tuesday. And the first tip is everything starts with your feet. So train barefoot with your feet when you can and you're allowed. Or I should have added in minimal shoes, something like Vivo Barefoot, or there's so many brands out there now. Vivos are my favorite because those were my first barefoot shoe love. And I've since discovered many other really comparable brands for different reasons that I like different ones. But the feet are everything. I mean, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, really? Was my back issue due to something going on in my feet? or were my issues with my toes running because there was an issue in my pelvic, my lumbopelvic area and back, or maybe both. So the answer is we don't know. It depends, and we're never going to know. But we do now know that the feet really are the start of everything. And if there's just anything that's even off a little bit in your feet, the way they're naturally supposed to be, nice and wide at the toes with space in between instead of like crunched up like this, that there's going to be some kind of dysfunction or some kind of imbalance up the chain,
I
so
explained it to someone yesterday as if that's your first line of defense in absorbing force from Earth or putting force into Earth, well, if the forces are not dispersed and absorbed as efficiently as they're supposed to be through the foot because of lack of positioning and mobility, then it just puts stress on other things up the chain.
100%.
Pretty simple.
It's like, and one of my other favorite things is, aside from that line that nothing is linear, is nothing works in isolation. So, I mean, even your pinky toe, as insignificant as that little piggy might seem, if you can't abduct that pinky toe, which I really can't anymore since surgery, especially on my left foot, it affects the way you walk and the way you move. And your big toe is directly, fires your glute muscles. So I didn't have big toe extension. So God only knows how my running looked. And then you put a pair of shoes on that's like this thick. It's basically wearing a high heel, and you go out and run in that, you're changing your gait. Oh gosh, don't even get me started. Right. So who knows? There was a whole cascade of events that probably occurred, especially during the years where I was in a stressful work environment, which was self-imposed because we were building a business and supporting a family. And we took out a home equity line of credit just to open our business. We didn't have, any money to open it with. So we were paying our rent at our office with our loan, and we were paying our mortgage with our loan. It was, it was a stressful time. 3 young kids, we took a big risk. So between the stress and the sitting, and then the going out and doing what I thought was something healthy, I was probably doing more damage than good. So I really don't know what caused the issues, but at some point I was at a point where my big toe in 2009, I just couldn't even get it in and out of a sneaker. I remember I went through orthotics. We went through cutting a hole where the big toe was, and then I was told to wear a really stiff shoe so my toe could rest and it wouldn't have to bend. Oh my gosh, and I still would go running like that. That couldn't have been great for my back, right?
No.
So, so they ended up cutting out a piece of the bone and making more space in the joint. That never healed properly. And then it happened to my other foot. What was going on? Did anybody ever look at my hips or my back or my shoulders? No. So, we like to now, as practitioners, and I'm sure you do the same thing when you have clients who come in and they're complaining, or they present with some kind of discomfort or pain that's chronic and it's just not going away. And they haven't been, let me just, there's a caveat here. I don't want to discount people who have been in a car accident or in a sports injury or, some kind of, there is a huge difference between somebody who has had a catastrophic or an impact injury and somebody like me who maybe had something that was unbalanced, or I hate to use the word dysfunctional because we are perfectly functioning humans. We're so lucky to have our health, but between those two things. So I don't want to discount people who have really truly been injured and have like really broken their back, or they're, ruptured, they're done something where they really need medical acute. Yeah, they need medical attention. But this is something that probably occurred because, we didn't know that people needed their movement assessed, and we didn't know and when I say we, I'm going to say the general population. I'm not talking about people who studied movement mechanics and back mechanics like the Stuart McGill and we the general population didn't have access to people like that because there wasn't like social media at that time. So we really didn't know to get assessed for a movement. We didn't know that when your back hurts, you should look above and below the part that's uncomfortable. You know, if your knee hurts, we need to be looking at the feet and ankles and hips, right? We need to look above and below because that's usually what's happening. So I don't think that even the people who are practicing medicine with good intention, that they're doing what they were taught, because our medical system's just not teaching movement.
There's two things one
I
is
feel like I went off on a tangent. I'm really
no,
sorry if I did.
no, it's okay. It's great.
Welcome to my world, my
There are
brain.
no rules here. There's no rules.
I love it.
So two things. And it makes me think of the first one is kind of like a funny analogy. Because you said no one thought to look above and below. Most people will only look above and below the counter for a pain med that can cure the spot that hurts, and they think that that's where the problem is because that's what hurts, so that's the end all be all. And right alongside that is the fact that we have so many ologists, right? Like, oh, you're an ologist, good for you. You're a cardiologist, you're a, you know, there's such a long list of specific niche body part specialists, and they study the foot, or they study the kidney, or they study the knees, or they study the lumbopelvic complex, or they study the shoulder, and none of them are communicating with the other. And like you just said, nothing works in a vacuum. So if something is overworking, it's because something else is underworking. If something is overstretched, then something else is under stretched, right? So it seems pretty obvious, but then when you look at everything under a microscope of, well, I'm just looking at that one pinpointed thing, then all of a sudden you get into, you know, the same concept that we deal with in the nutrition world, like, oh, your cholesterol's high. Well,
what's causing it?
Why though? What is the real deal? Is like the person eating too much of something, or is the cholesterol that your body's naturally making not getting absorbed into the cell? Or there's 7 different, you know, factors that play into that and directly relate, and no one wants to look at that. So,
it makes me very, very sad, and actually creates anxiety around my, I feel sometimes it makes me feel a little anxious because it's frustrating. And you were talking about the nutrition side of it. I had once asked somebody who is a resident in a hospital in North Carolina. I said to her, can I ask you how many hours of nutrition did you take when you were in med school at University of Miami? And the answer was, I think it was 2, and it was an elective. I'm like, wow. Oh, there's a disconnect here. You know, there's a disconnect here. And, you know, we were saying how, I lost my train of thought. Let's see, we're talking about nothing works in isolation. We'll go back to, it'll come back to me because it always does.
The other thing is, you know, so we'll bring it all the way back to the foot. You've now had 2 surgeries, and I want to talk about, you were obviously still working. You got those surgeries when you were still building that business. What did your recovery consist of? That's what I'm
awful. So my recovery consisted of, let's put a big boot on that foot and let's limp around and take, you know, pain medicine when you don't, you know, when you need it, which made me feel awful. I am not like a big, I don't even really like taking Tylenol, you know, like, but yeah, I mean, and now especially, back then I was just, I'm not like a dabbler of stuff. You know, it's not 1980 something anymore, but that was a different time. But I wasn't a huge dabbler then either. You know, I was like very cautious, but it doesn't mean nothing happened. But, you know, so it's just, everything always has I always like to say everything has a cascade of events. And I just remembered the other thing that we were talking about. But, you know, the recovery was tough, and it was always like, okay, the foot surgeon said, you can go out and run in 12 weeks. Well, at 10 and a half weeks, my foot felt, in a shoe that I cut the toe out of. I felt that I was moving. So of course, what did I do? Boom, out the door.
Yeah.
And I was still doing the basic old fashioned runner stretch like this. I was like, one of these,
quad.
and then boom, out the door. So, and what we also now know is a tight muscle is a weak muscle. So, I was stretching those hamstrings, but were they serving me? Probably not. I'm going to just circle back to what my other thought was. You were talking about parts of your body that, are in pain. And sometimes a client will come in and they love to go into the diatribe of like things that hurt them. I have a bad this, I have a bad back, I have a bad knee. Well, I could say I have a bad back. I have a 5-inch scar on my back from my back surgery. My back is freaking amazing. Okay, so that back is amazing. You know why it hurt? It's because it's taking your back. I always say to them, you know what? Your back isn't bad. I said, you should thank your back. Your back is screaming at you. It's exhausted because it's taking on all the slack of all the other things around it that we need to get stronger, that we need to make strong. Let's work on your hips. Let's work on your feet. Let's work on your ankles. Let's work on your shoulders. And then you know what your back's gonna say? It's gonna say, I love you, thank you. I don't hurt anymore. So your back isn't bad. We don't have bad stuff. It just is, it's talking to you and it's saying,
symptoms are
help, help.
Yeah.
Pain is, I think Perry Nicholson,
Yes.
and if anybody doesn't follow him, you should go to Stop Chasing Pain. This guy is brilliant. He does like a lot of lymphatic stuff, but he always says that pain is a request for change. And I love that. Pain is a request for change. So it's like, what's the definition of crazy? Doing the same thing over and over and over again without any results, right? So like stretching your hamstrings, or constantly, when somebody has a bad back, you see them doing this. They're like, oh, my back is killing me. Well, how long have you been bending over and stretching that? It's not working. Maybe we need to do something different, So it's just like your back will thank you, or your shoulder will thank you if you start kind of working on the stuff globally around it and getting, we don't have bad stuff. It just, you just need to fix the stuff around it that's just a little bit, that needs attention.
Yeah. In the athletic training world, we always tell the athletes or the patient, it's not a bad knee, it's the involved knee. So the one that you are dealing with something with right now, we're going to call it the involved knee. It's not bad.
I love that.
Maybe your left knee hurts because your right knee is not doing jack shit and your left one's carrying all the weight.
Right. I love it. Exactly. And they're like, oh, it's like a light. You can see the light bulbs. They're like, but you can see multiple light bulbs going off. There's an Edison light over here, a fluorescent light over here. There's a flame above their head. And all of a sudden, and you know what's great about that? I get so jacked up, I'm sweating about it. Like the people who hear this stuff and aren't exposed to it, the general population people that hear this, they have that aha moment. And you know what? You give them the gift of hope at that very minute. And it flips the switch, and all of a sudden they feel like, whoa, I have power here. There's, you give people that power back. Where on the other hand, yeah, exactly. And the medical system is so different. And, again, I don't want to discount, like you said, the acute stuff that really needs attention, but, oftentimes, the doctors, I think they're just so ruled by the insurance companies and the bottom line that they just have to get people in and out. And they're like, all right, okay, I see a bulging disc here. Boom, boom, boom. Go get an injection. I'll give you some, give you something for that. And that's just all they know. And really all they have time for at this point. They don't even have time to take like updated courses on this stuff.
No, they have no ability to do that. Most of them are not healthy or fit by human standards in the 1950s. because that was before agriculture, mass agriculture really took over and changed.
Yep.
And that was before schools became a way to just get people into factories. So that's when, if you want to go based off of like what is the human body just generally and normally, and like what is fit and healthy, yes, they weren't living necessarily as long from the standpoint of they didn't have the ability to deal with acute stuff, so average lifespan was not as long, but their quality of life was probably higher from a physical
Mm-hmm.
standpoint and lack of pain.
Yeah.
um, so I mean, to take my health and put it in the hands of someone who doesn't have theirs just seems oddly counteractive. I don't know. It's
A little
just
counterintuitive, right? It's
yeah, yeah.
definitely counterintuitive. It is.
Um,
It, and I mean, we have friends who are doctors and surgeons and my husband, he's a personal injury attorney, so this is what he does. Connects people with chiropractors and doctors, and they all have the best of intention, and they all really, a lot of people get great results.
oh,
Some people get great results, but I feel that oftentimes though, people in general are just misled, and they just want to be like, this hurts, cut it open, let's fix it, let's move on. But guess what happens after that? You have like a year of recovering from that, where you could have just been maybe moving or doing things, and the recovery is so hard. It's,
well, the
from
other
a lot
thing
of these things.
from recovery standpoint is that what you're going to get out of an insurance company is never going to be enough. And if you're going for
Mm-mm.
12 sessions or whatever your insurance covers to a physical therapist, they're not working one-on-one with you. They're giving you something. They're walking over to three other tables and three other patients, giving them,
Been there.
and
Yeah.
they're circling
Been there.
around. They're hovering, and they're doing the best they can. There's
Yep.
no, I'm not taking away from that, but can we get to people before they have to go see a personal injury lawyer, or before they get into, a car accident, and that way they have some sort of kinesthetic awareness and control and power over how they're going to bounce back from this?
Right.
uh,
Right.
can we get to the 40-year-old athlete at 25, so that that 40-year-old athlete is now understanding of what they need to do towards the end of their career, how they need to morph their training, how
Hmm.
they need to exit their career so that they can
And remain resilient. And I think that I love the word resilient. I try to explain um to clients and even my peers when I go to dinner, I'm like, the thing is, don't you want to be resilient? So if you get in an accident, you have that best chance of recovering,
Mhm.
and going back to the things you love to do. Don't you want to be that person who, God forbid your car goes into, a canal on the side of like the Florida Turnpike, that you are strong enough to bust open the window and pull yourself up and over? Or if you're being chased by a dog, a neighbor's dog, that you can outrun the dog, or hop over a fence to do that, or pull yourself up over something. That's like, resilience and fitness. And that's what we're really born to do, like born to be able to do those things. And just the
The-
people who are in those kind of accidents should be able to hopefully, recover much more quickly if they're already fit, and even mentally it's the
you
same
know
thing.
where my mind goes is, what percentage of Americans would be, not from a tactical technical standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, how many of them would be able to hunt an animal down?
I don't think I could. But
I,
I mean,
you
I'm not
could
there
you
yet, but
could
I'm working
ruck
on that.
you could ruck for a couple days, and if you're with someone who's technically sound, you could absolutely take an animal
Yeah.
out. But like, that's, yes, we're creating this life and we're trying to improve technology and medicine so that we don't have to do that on a day-to-day basis. But ultimately, physically, we're still the same exact thing that we were 6,000 years ago.
Right.
So we should still have those capabilities.
Right.
And I'm not one of the ones that wants to become like a cyborg intertwined with technology
Mhm.
anytime soon. So
I don't want you to either.
yeah,
Please don't. Please
the
don't.
resilience factor, could be as simple as what's been going on for the last couple of years too. Like, I want to be resilient enough from a nutritional standpoint and immune standpoint. So if I do come into contact with a virus, I have a better chance of surviving with,
Exactly.
with or without a vaccine or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Like, I'm giving myself the best chance.
This is what I say all the time. Give yourself the best chance. And my husband and I, we took care of his grandmother who, God bless her, she lived till she was like I can't remember if it was 91 or 93, and she was on. She would give herself an insulin shot, or check her blood sugar. Or go, oh, she was from Brooklyn. My sugar, oh, it's good. And she would put down an Eggo waffle with ice cream and bananas on it, you know. We always joke, it's like she lived till 90 something and she did fine, but we forget that it was a real struggle in the end. So you want to give
Mhm.
yourself. It was really hard. She used to sit there and go, I don't even know why the F I'm still here. Like, she was so funny and so amazing and had so much tragedy in her life, and she remained so positive. But it wasn't easy at the end. She used to say everything's an effort. So you want to stack your cards so you can move more effortlessly and more gracefully through life,
Mhm.
right?
You want to
Because
be able to conquer as many hurdles as you're going to come across, because they're going to come.
exactly, they're going to come at you, whether it's a virus or a family emergency, or just there's just so many, as you know, like
Yeah.
that's just how it is.
And ultimately, I think your resilience determines the after effect that each hurdle has on you, right? So
Hmm.
your resiliency before that foot surgery, if it was higher, you could have had a better turnout afterwards, right?
Right. Right.
So that's ultimately where we come in and say, okay, well, let's take this wellness and preventative approach. I really have to connect you with my business partner, Tina Rose. You would literally talk for 8 hours with her. I have no doubt about it. She's a mother of two or three uh, college age kids. Um, she is a nurse practitioner, worked as an OBGYN. Um, I mean, you guys would just hit it off. I got to connect you too. Um, so that whole premise of like, let's take that wellness approach, that preventative approach. Let's teach someone to move better. Let's teach someone to be more mindful of what they do day to day,
Yep.
and more grateful for the physical abilities that they do have. And
Yes.
let's give someone the mindset of, if you're in pain, well, let's figure out why. What are the tools that we can use to take myself out of that? And
Hmm.
ultimately, not just go look for someone to give you the answer, but internally find the answer and then
Yeah.
fix it little by little. Because, like you said before, it's an accumulation. Movement is accumulated over time.
Right.
We, since the 70s, had this idea that, like, okay, you just dedicate an hour of workout time to your day, and you'll be
Hmm.
a healthy person, which we know is
If
not.
you're inactive the other 23 hours, you're
Yeah.
not an active person. So,
Yeah.
this is another misnomer, or misconception, is that, oh, I worked out today, I'm done. You know, this is
Mhm.
just not it, and
Can't just go lay
honestly, it,
down.
it is hard. I was that person, I know, and I
Mhm.
have been there. I mean, my husband was traveling, building our business. I was building the business at home. I had three kids in three different schools. They didn't drive. There were meals to make and homework to do, and I just wanted to get in that hour. But look what happens. and
Mhm.
and it doesn't happen to everybody. There are those outliers who can do it all, and they can beat up their bodies. And, for some reason, they're still like, running at 90 years old. They're like, great, or I see people, oh yeah, that he ran like 14 miles yesterday, he has no pain. It's like, great. There are those outliers, but it is
Yeah.
inevitable for most of the time. You cannot run on that kind of that kind of schedule. Your body just wasn't built like that to just bang out an hour of exercise and then go do all the other stressful life things all the rest of the day. It's just not sustainable. Like, you know, it
Yeah.
just doesn't, you want something that's more sustainable. So even
From
I love talking about the nutrition stuff because I too was guilty of, feeding my kids just whatever they would eat, chicken nuggets, and it had to be Purdue. They wouldn't eat the other brand, the Tyson. That had to be the Purdue because certain textures, and as a mom and you're busy, you just want your kids fed, right? And Kraft macaroni and cheese. But, we now know, or I now know, because of the vacuum that we're in, or I like to say, there's this really, really fantastic fitness professional. His name is Jason St. Clair. It's Katie St. Clair and Jason St. Clair. They are physical therapists who run a really, really tight Instagram feed and have really great workshops and information out there. But he always says we're living in an echo chamber when we have, sometimes these podcasts and we're kind of all just talking to each other or talking to the people that are just, this is our interest. So we're kind of just, it's almost like, CNN and Fox, it's echo chamber. But now that I'm in this echo chamber and not the echo chamber of, I got to get up, get in a workout, get the office stuff done and get the kids taken care of. I'm in a different echo chamber. Like I've since been so much more interested in actual like nutrition, not diet. I can't stand the word diet, or you like it just, how are we, nurture nutrition? It's like the same word. Like,
diet,
what are you putting in? Yeah. Diet, D-I-E.
Yeah.
I have friends and it's like they're every year, every 6 months, they're on some kind of different diet and then they're off, or, they just, it's like, how's that working? Just, if we could just like think about what you're putting in and all the things we've even found out about seed oils now and chicken and the way it's treated and grown. And this is a whole, like, again, I could do a podcast about our feed, a podcast about the food. And it's not stuff that I have, that I've come up with. This is all stuff that I've learned from reading books like The Dorito Effect by Mark Schatzker, which was brilliant. And even Sean Stevenson, who has, what was that book he had? Eat Smarter or something like that. His stuff is fantastic. I think is fantastic. It's really relatable. There's a lot of the stuff that you like that's out there that is interesting to you, interesting to me, might not be interesting to some other people, that's outside of the echo chamber.
Unfortunately, because I feel like the one thing we all have in common is the human body, and our echo chambers learn more about the human body.
Yeah.
And treat it better with what which I feel like should be a part of every echo chamber. If you want to be successful in whatever you're doing, give yourself the best chance. Optimize the way that you move, you deal with situations, that you deal with anxiety, depression, that you deal with stressors of everyday life, that you deal with food and the way that you intake it, and how that can change your capacity to work on a computer for longer, if that's what it is, and make a better game or come up with a better idea for a commercial. If you're a marketing person, it all seems it's the foundational thing for
I
all
always
of
say, like, why wouldn't you want to get better at something? Like, even especially as we age, it's like I have so many people in my peer group, dear friends who will be out to dinner like, oh, my knee, I played pickleball and my knee is bothering me. And so I'm going to rest it. And, my knee keeps bothering me. And, this getting old, they'll say this getting old thing is really sucky. I'm like, but why does everybody blame it on aging? I mean, of course there's things that happen. I mean, of course, like my fingers are starting to bend in certain weird ways, like my mother's, like, of course we're having stuff, but like, don't always blame stuff on like these like cliches, like, oh, it's my age, or, oh, it's this, because we're just so malleable. There's neuroplasticity in our brains, and and there's just, our bodies are constantly reinventing themselves. And like, why wouldn't you want to just keep getting better and better with years instead of like declining, getting decrepit. Like that's my biggest fear is I don't want to be decrepit. I don't want somebody else wiping my ass. Thanks.
No,
That's good.
that
I'm
is my
good.
biggest fear is like you mentioned earlier, like the zombie apocalypse comes, I am ready. Like I am fully optimized and ready to handle whatever happens.
I'm
With
on Team Dylan.
all skill sets and all physical challenges, I'm gonna figure it out.
Right.
I think that's one thing that people don't train enough of either. Like we talk about resiliency, but how about adaptability? Because
Yeah.
ultimately, like you can be resilient really well at one thing, right? You can be very resilient to a bar with a bunch of weight on it and pressing your feet into the ground to pick it up. But your adaptability to be resilient or have your spine or your hips or your ankles or your knees be resilient in other positions,
Mm-hmm.
if you can't adapt to that position, then you're no longer resilient. You're just as
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know,
you're
my own
a
coach,
liability.
yeah, my own coach will talk about stuff. Sometimes I'll say, what do you think about a client who has blah blah? He goes, just get them into a position they're not used to being in. Because it's so true. It's like if you just put people into and they just start learning those other things, it's like it's so funny because you can adapt to all those things and just learning all these other, like who knew like that I could be animal flowing at this age, or like honestly, like after a back surgery, after my back surgery, when my doctor said I back surgery was December 9th, 2015, and I think it was like January 20 something I had a follow up, and I think I went to put on a shoe. He goes, "Oh no," he goes, "You really shouldn't bend like that probably for the rest of your life." And he goes, "Also no lifting heavy things or twisting." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, but that was like, that doesn't seem right. I see football players back out there after surgery and stuff like that. It's like your body is it just is your body is resilient, but if you're going to sit there like a lump, it's going to become just
It'll adapt to that.
it'll well, there's
It'll
another
become
there's
a really
another
good
thing.
lump.
Yeah, you're a really good lump. Well, so I think Gray Cook, I'm pretty sure in one of the functional movement podcasts or books, or maybe it was like Kelly Starrett and Supple Leopard, I don't know, one of them said something about how the body will take on the shape that it's most used to being in, right? So if you're sitting in a chair all day like this, where
Yeah.
are you going to be, or if you're sitting on a couch in a really comfortable smushy pillow, all day,
Like
like
this.
what's going to happen? So can you imagine, like, if I had listened to that doctor and just cuddled up on my couch and just went into that like Netflix hole and said, screw that. Doctor told me I can't do any of that stuff anymore. We put these
It,
limitations on people. Like, don't put limitations on people.
and don't put limitations on yourself. There's a really good
Gosh,
book.
no.
I don't think I have it right in front of me.
Be limitless.
Yes, be limitless, right?
Hello.
Our body is
Hello.
capable of infinite, possibilities. And so two things. Um, one, this book that a colleague of mine wrote.
I keep expecting it to
Um,
just drop out of the sky, like
yeah,
to like one side
no,
of your head.
I found it. It's over there. It's called Rebuild, and
Mm.
it's all about not accepting the diagnosis.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
so I will try to get you that book or send you the link to it or whatever, um, because you would resonate with it a lot.
For
And
sure.
he was a medical doctor, reached the age of like 45, and completely just was losing touch with all of his health, right? Stressed
Mm.
out, way beyond belief, ends up getting cancer, ends up telling the doctors, like, listen, you're going to take it out. They're like, well, that's like the most risky thing we could do based on where it is. Like, and he's like, I don't care. Take it out. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to rebuild myself and I'm gonna be able to be resilient from now on, and he just committed his life to it.
Fantastic.
He's now 52, 53, best shape of his life. He's 7% body fat, ripped and shredded, almost 200 pounds, tall, good looking guy, 6 feet, 6'1". And he literally has like a scar down his chest that's 12 inches long. And it's really powerful. He just talks about the basics of what to do nutritionally, supplementation wise, exercise wise, and mindset wise, how not to just accept the narrative of like, you shouldn't do that, or you are this, you have ADHD, you have a degenerative disc, you have
Yeah.
no cartilage in your knee. And he goes, stop accepting the diagnosis. It's not who you are. It's
Right.
just a symptom of who you were. Now change that.
Yeah, some people really kind of like, they like to swim in that diagnosis though. I think some people, it
Misery loves
becomes
company.
it becomes who they are, and
That's
it
their
becomes,
identification.
yeah, it becomes their identification, and it becomes easier for them because that way they can just kind of say, yeah, I don't have to do that because I have this,
Mhm.
So
It's
I
like,
do think there are different personalities. I think you and I are kind of more like, and probably other people listening to this too, in our echo chamber. I think that there are people who are really proactive, and then there are people who are just happy to just hum along and do that. And you know what? I feel sad for them. I don't think, well, you're an idiot. I just feel like, wow, boy, are you missing out? Because it feels so good to accomplish and do the things that we can do, and it just I feel like the universe is just like a better place when you like move, like we talked about, moving more efficiently and gracefully through it. It's just
and
overall better.
if there's one thing I've learned in the last year and a half, 2 years, is the emotional connection that we have physically with different parts
Hmm.
of our bodies, right? So the right side of our body is more associated with the masculine, proactive, being out in front of, doing things like tackling the day. And the left side of the body is going to be more associated with the female, emotional, linguistic, artistic, creative side of things, right?
Hmm.
And being able to designate and say, okay, well, I'm having issues on this side of my body. Maybe it's brought upon through some emotional things that I'm dealing with. Um, that whole connection and understanding of, well, if someone, this is what I was going to touch on earlier, like you said, you asked your coach, if someone is dealing with this, what should I do? Put them in an uncomfortable position.
Hmm.
Well, for someone who is closed off, they're emotionally like not able to love, right? Their heart is closed off, like quite literally their chest is caving in. They're
Hmm.
around a computer all the time. They're not interacting, they're not having,
Cyborg. The cyborg alert.
yeah, right. And emotionally, that chakra, that energy wave inside of their chest around their heart is closed off. Try putting someone like that you have, Dana, into a crab walk position,
Yeah, like you're gonna open up.
and they will die. They won't be able to breathe. They won't be able
Yeah,
to move. The efficiency of saying pick up your right hand and your left foot at the same time,
too
completely
much.
illiterate to it, no
Yeah.
awareness. And it's funny how you can make those connections, like, wow, this person really has an emotional limitation that is completely inhibiting them from moving or gaining in that position and moving through it efficiently.
Absolutely.
So that in and of itself is like, if you want to grow, just go into those uncomfortable places and learn to be comfortable there, right?
Yeah.
Get into a crab walk.
People don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't, they just don't. So recently, let's talk about uncomfortable. I did it at Body Therapeutic Architecture,
Yes.
um, at our friend Danny's beautiful new studio. I'll give it a plug. I did the fire and ice type cold water plunge sauna. I've never done that. I brought my husband with me, and he's just not into this stuff at all. And I'm so grateful that he went, because he actually, I think he enjoyed it. It was like a really cool thing. And I went back and did it actually by myself, because before the RKC, I was having a lot of anxiety, and I called Danny and I'm like, I think I need a plunge. If I can get in that tub, I think I can conquer that. I can do that. And I know I got this. So the first time I went with my husband, we did the plunge together. We did the 2 minutes under that water, and then I was more fearful of going in the sauna, because I get a little bit like, not claustrophobic, but I get like, I just don't really love being closed in heat.
Yeah.
So I knew I could maybe handle the cold plunge,
But
but the
this,
sauna, I was like, I don't know if I can stay in there. I couldn't wait to get in that thing, and I didn't even want to come out. But honestly, like, putting yourself in that discomfort, it
so
almost, when you face it, it almost becomes, I would venture to say, comfortable,
yeah.
because you almost feel like it also giving you that power again, like to own that discomfort. It's like it's another area of growth. So it's like, when people do conquer the uncomfortable or things they're not used to, I don't even like to say uncomfortable. It's like, put them in the position they're not used to being in.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not uncomfortable. Maybe they're just not used to it. Their body just isn't there. Like the growth is just exponential. Again, growth. Here we go, getting better and building and just skyrocketing. So like
So
something like that. Talk about uncomfortable.
for sure. And ultimately, it expands the emotional horizon that you're able to experience. And as a human, like, what you're here to do is experience things through your five senses.
Mhm.
And the accumulation of those senses gives you a feeling. So ultimately, like, all of those things are, if you're not experiencing a position or moving through a pattern or exposing yourself to cold water or a hot sauna, you are literally closing yourself off to emotions that are completely within the realm of being a human, but you're never going to
Mhm.
experience them.
Yep.
So when I think of like the limitless, right, concept is like the LT360, the circle is just, it's wide, it's full, you're getting everything you can on the spectrum, and it all circles back together because it's all really the same thing. It's just human emotion, and you're
Yeah.
constantly growing the size of that circle each and every time that you go experiencing something new.
Yeah.
We say that not everything we do is unprecedented.
Oh, I
So
love that line. I love that. I think I've heard you say that before. It's one of my favorites.
yeah, so if, like, I've done a bunch of these podcasts, right? But I've
But
never,
never with me in this moment.
yeah, and never with the same food in my stomach or the same
Right.
amount of, water waiting to get let out in the bathroom. Like,
Right.
every little
Exactly.
aspect of this is different.
Everything.
And with that, the more that you put yourself in those positions or situations that you're just not used to being in, the more neuroplasticity, the more human emotion, the more neurological synapses are actually created. And when you
Yeah.
stop creating those, that's when you have
You start dying.
defeat. That's death. Yeah,
It
100%.
really, you start, or you die. You know what? Well, because we start dying the day we're born. But I like to say you're just dying faster.
Yes,
Like
you start
that
dying
that's
faster.
you're accelerating your death, and your chronological, you're biologically aging faster.
Yes.
There's a chronological age and the biological age.
Hmm.
So you want your biological age to keep getting younger, even though your chronological age is getting older. So when you do start connecting all those neuroplastic things, it's like bing bing bing. Every time they connect, you're just aging a few seconds younger. It's like, it's the best thing ever.
It's
So
a
yeah, it's
it's a
crazy.
spectrum,